Here? Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Perdisatt, and as Ashlyn said, I'm CEO and founder of Acuity AI. Acuity AI, we're an independent AI advisory firm, and our objective is to help organizations of all sizes and types actually navigate this world of AI that we're in today. I'm also on the board of a very large travel infrastructure organization, dealing with a lot of cyber challenges that we've had over the last week in a highly regulated environment. I'm also on the board of the largest university in the Republic of Ireland. So, trying to navigate AI in an educational ecosystem is incredibly interesting. I'm an investor in organizations as well. My investment hypothesis is really simple. I invest in what's called restarts, not startups. So I invest in traditional organizations that can be transformed with AI. And I think, by the way, that I think that the panel with with Lindsay and Caitlin and Ruth was absolutely fantastic. What I would say is that a lot of what you heard from from an enterprise perspective is also applicable to organizations of all sizes. I am concerned that there can be a bit of a digital divide between the access that hyperscalers give to their largest organizations, but trust me, for very, very small organizations, and not just for digitally native organizations, there's a great opportunity to transform. Some of those companies that I invest in are extremely small. Some of the companies that I advise are extremely large. I'm advising one of the largest global M&A firms as they invest in one of the largest sovereign wealth funds on AI worldwide. That's not what I'm here in Belfast today to talk about. And by the way, when I was with Microsoft, I used to spend an awful lot of time just around the corner in the science park. And in my role in Microsoft, Harland and Wolff taught me probably the most important thing that I need to know in a corporate environment, and it was what was called the Harland and Wolff excuse, which was about the Titanic. And the excuse was, it was fine when it left here. And I think that's something that I brought to a lot of my corporate work. What I want to talk to you today is about the reality of having worked with Microsoft when I was COO of the European business. I was with Microsoft for 15 years. I was COO of the European business for about 5 years. That was a $10 billion business in terms of my revenue annually. It was about $2.5 trillion of turnover for the clients that I worked with. So working with Microsoft in my current work, big organizations, small organizations, I see the reality, the great reality and the ugly reality of where AI is today. And I wanted to give you some of that insight in terms of where we are today. Does that sound okay? Fantastic. When I was thinking about this, and I was actually invited to speak at an event on Tuesday night of this week it was a bunch of technology investors, CTOs, founders, and it was actually on almost an identical topic. And the thing I found really, really interesting was these incredibly driven, incredibly technology savvy, incredibly efficient and effective people are all struggling with the exact same thing, which is this information overload world that we are living in. And this is the reality of what we're dealing with right now. Just to give you, I'm not going to read each one individually, but to give you a sense of what's going on right now. Over the last 5 years, and this is a US number, but I think it's applicable here as well, the average spend on productivity tools, not including AI, but kind of core productivity tools, including but not limited to Microsoft Stack and Microsoft Copilot, that's gone up about 60%. Real productivity GDP, or real productivity measured in terms of GDP, has gone up 6%. So the rate at which we're investing in productivity tools, the rate at which productivity is going up, are not being matched. That's an incredibly important one. Second one that I think is interesting is 75% of knowledge workers using AI in workplaces. I think, Lindsay, it's kind of higher in terms of some of the organizational stats that kind of you were talking about. But in most organizations, only half of the people using it are actually getting training in terms of this, right? But more importantly, in terms of what it means for you as a human being in your day-to-day is this. You get 120 to 150 emails on average. You get 150 plus Teams pings, Slack pings, who knows how many other types of notifications that you get as part of it. You probably, in your organization, any mid-sized organization, you're running at least 100 line of business applications. Now, you won't be using 100 business applications on a day-to-day basis, but that's the way that your tech stack is built. What does that mean? That means that the average person in this room switches their context 1,200 times per day during their workday. Right? That's incredible. Let me tell you this, the human brain is not built for that. Definitively, the human brain is not built for that. And I know that to be true for the following two stats. Firstly, Forbes data from last week before. 66% of knowledge workers in the US are suffering some degree of burnout. Second stat from the National Association of Medical Intelligence in the US. Of that, those people who are suffering burnout, half of them, 52%, is because of information overload. So the one thing I would encourage you today is, when you're listening to everybody today, don't do what I call the middle aisle syndrome in Aldi or Lidl, where whenever I go in for one thing, I come out with 20 things, right? And I think with AI, one of the big things is, I think, Caitlin, were you the one that said shiny tools? I think you're absolutely spot on. That's the thing. Because each tool on its individual basis offers amazing potential. The challenge comes when you add all of these different tools into this information maelstrom mix that we've got. And the final stat, by the way, 60% of work is work about the work. It's not doing the work, it's doing the work all around the work. Here's a buzzword for you. Here's today's buzzword for you if you haven't already heard it. Work slop. AI work slop. Stat from CNBC last week. This is from Stanford and BetterUp. 40% of US workers in the last month have received what's called AI slop, which is basically an AI system, whether it's something you've gotten in code, whether it's somebody who's written an email, whether it's somebody who's summarized a document, and it's absolute gibberish. And it takes longer to go and rework it than it would have done to do it right in the first place. This is going to be a prevalent part of the world we're living in from now on. And actually, to the shiny tools piece that Caitlin spoke about, you're absolutely right. This is the cycle that I see an awful lot of organizations are in right now. AI promises more time. Great. We experiment with AI tools. And everybody's experimenting in a different way. And half of the people who are experimenting, back to my previous stat, aren't even being trained on what they're experimenting on. You inject that into this information flux that we're living with right now, guess what? Cognitive overload. Because of the amount of work that we're being expected to do, you have less time to think strategically. Crap results. Because you don't have time to think strategically, you get crap results from the tools. Because you don't have time to use them properly, you don't get crap results in an overall context. So what's the solution? Let's try more AI tools. Wrong. I'm sorry for this to be a contrarian take today. Wrong. The answer is not more AI tools. It's actually having a framework, a cognitive framework, as well as a technology framework to put this stuff into. By the way, this illustration, greatest AI tool, and I appreciate the irony of talking about an AI tool, by the way. Greatest AI tool, napkin.ai. If you hate doing stuff in PowerPoint in terms of illustrations, use Napkin. Completely free, absolutely awesome. But here's the question I'm going to ask you in the remaining 10 minutes that I've got. Do you know how to be productive? When I asked all of those technology entrepreneurs on Tuesday night, everybody said yes. When I asked them, and there was about 40 people, when I asked them, who's got a productivity strategy, either individually or for their organization, one lady put her hand up. Everybody else has an emergent, organic productivity operating system that they've just generated over the course of their career, right? Most people, apart from some devs, I would say, most people do not have a formalized productivity strategy. And that is going to be a challenge for you as we go further into this AI world that we're living in. Here's the 5 pillars of productivity as we see it. This isn't gospel, this is just our approach in terms of how we think about it. First, your impact, whether you are a founder, whether you are a CEO, whether you are a new member of an organization, your impact in an organization is directly proportional to the time that you spend on the most important stuff. That may seem obvious, but you'd be surprised how work can get away from you. The second point is people are terrible at prioritizing, and I'm going to show you how bad people are at prioritizing. The third point is, if you don't protect your focus time to work on the big things, nobody is going to protect it for you. The AI systems certainly aren't going to protect it for you. So you as a human being are going to need to be at the center of sifting signal from noise in this AI world. Fourth, if everybody has a different communications plan in an organization, nobody has a communications plan for the organization. Ask yourself, is everybody in your organization clear on when you use Slack, when you use Teams, when you use email, when you use a one-to-one chat, when you use a group chat, when you text, when you WhatsApp, when you call? Probably not. Probably not. You'd be surprised before you even touch an AI tool. If you figured that out, you'd already significantly improve your productivity. And then the last part is, and explain what a chronotype is. A chronotype is basically whether you're a morning person or a night owl or you do your best work in the middle of the day. Match the type of work that you do, that maybe AI is urging you to do, match it to you as an individual and how you're built. Now, good news is, particularly, I'm aware of the amazing work that Canis has done. Canis has been an amazing Microsoft partner for a very, very long time. It would be remiss of me not to use Copilot to prove to you how badly and dysfunctionally a human being can do this. And guess whose inefficiencies and ineffectiveness we're going to use? We're going to use mine on the biggest screen I've ever actually shown these on. So this is going to be awesome. But to the first one, spending your time on the big topics. Okay, so you don't have to worry what the individual words are, but basically what I did is I asked, I said, hey, I'm CEO of an AI strategy company. Can you tell me if I'm spending my time in the right areas strategically? You'll also know that it's written really badly. Why is it written really badly? I don't type stuff. The information density of talking is 10 times more efficient than the information density of typing, and it comes with a lower cognitive load, right? The only time I type is on my phone, basically. Fine. Some issues with full stops and stuff like that, but so what? So if you take nothing else today, if you use a Windows laptop, Windows and the H button. So you can voice type rather than actual type. That's the first thing I would say. But here's the interesting thing. The one thing that I would say Microsoft Copilot, and I think Microsoft Copilot is generally actually mispositioned by a lot of the market. Microsoft Copilot is the most amazing AI archivist. It's not the world's greatest AI designer, but it knows everything about how you work and how you should work through the Microsoft Graph API. Right? There's a reservoir telemetry that exists in your organization that will absolutely blow your mind in terms of how to be more productive. And you can use that as an individual to be reflective about how you actually take yourself forward. So what did it say to me? It said, yeah, you're pretty good in terms of all of these areas, apart from maybe you're doing a little bit too much admin work. And let me show you why I'm doing too much admin work. So what I asked it also to do was, well, hey, can you prioritize all of the stuff that I've got going on, right? Because I'm not a good multitasker. I'm trying to do a bunch of different things at the same time. So prioritize everything that I've got and use an Eisenhower matrix. So that's the matrix of urgent and important. And I did what everybody else does in this situation. You do the urgent and important stuff first. There's been a cyber breach. Your boss asks you to do something. A client is defecting. You do that work. Then you do the urgent stuff that's not important because somebody's screaming for it, and you're just better off doing it. By that stage, it's 3 or 4 p.m. Are you going to do your big thinking then? Of course you're not. What are you going to do? Words with friends, Wordle, or you're going to do your expenses. You do the random admin stuff, and then you're wondering why you didn't get to the big strategic stuff. So I use Copilot to actually block my day. I also ask it as part of this to give me the time to focus. Tell me exactly when I should be focusing. Because even if you know what you should be doing, if you don't put time in to do it, it ain't going to get done. And this is it. It's given me my focus blocks. The only thing it hasn't been, Copilot is still not able to do is actually schedule the things for me. But hopefully that is coming at some point in time in terms of that. But this is spot on. This is exactly how I should be spending my time, but I'm not. And here's a simple takeaway, the 3x3 approach. Either late the previous evening, first thing in the morning, don't touch your email, don't do anything else. Do this. Take 3 minutes. 3 big things you need to work on today, or you need to work on this week, and put those 3 blocks into diaries to do that. You'd be amazed what that does. Now, Microsoft Telemetry is great, but it doesn't tell me everything I need to know. So I use a lot of AI tools. And what I've done is I've used Replit to build my own tools when the tools on the market don't actually suffice. So if you want to see how big a hypocrite I am, here's how big a hypocrite I am. Here is me telling you what to do and then doing the absolute opposite. So this is a breakdown of my day, this thing with the blue line and the red dots. The blue lines are when I'm in meetings. The red dots are emails I'm sending. So the person who says you should be doing one thing at a time and doing your big work, I'm an absolute barefaced liar. That's the first thing I would say. And then the second thing I would say is I graph that over time to see exactly how bad I am at this, right? And bear in mind, I'm somebody who should absolutely know better. Clearly I don't. So this is why the pervasiveness of all of these AI tools, you have to think about how do you protect your individual and collective productivity as part of that. The fourth point about if you don't have a comms plan individually and collectively, you don't have a comms strategy, right? And if you can't communicate as an organization, it's very, very difficult to get to where you need to go. So asking AI to be able to actually break down, well, okay, am I using all of these different channels and tools and systems the best way? Am I using Copilot Teams the best way? Am I using Slack the best way? Am I using GitHub or Discord or whatever I'm using the best way, right? It can hold you, AI can hold you accountable to the way that you should work. And then the last thing is, and this is probably the worst example. So I've plugged in what kind of person I am, right, in terms of the way I work and the way I like to work. A lot of these AI guys I was talking to on Tuesday talked about having a work with me document where you share with people how you work. I don't know if it's a good idea or not. Feels a bit tech bro to me. But this is how I kind of measured who I am and how I work, right? And, what does Jer do? Jer goes and spends most of his time in meetings when science tells him he should be spending the majority of his time doing his deep work. So what does that mean? If you know what your priorities are as an individual or as an organization, and you've prioritized that stuff, and you've blocked that stuff, for the love of God, block it at a time that works for you as an individual. If you're a morning person and you block it in the evening, you're going to get a bad outcome. If you're an evening person and you block it in the morning, you're going to get a bad outcome. So really, over the course of this, what I hope you're taking away from this is that this mass proliferation of AI tools that we're dealing with are being injected into the context of a productivity environment that is just not evolving, okay, at nearly the speed. The meetings culture that we mostly live with, we've been living with that for 80 to 90 years. The CC culture, the transparency culture that we live with in terms of information, that started at the end of the 19th century. So we're living with a productivity operating system that is not fit for purpose. So when you go out and when you think about some of these amazing tools that you're going to be hearing about now, ask yourselves the question, how does this fit into our overall strategy for today? And remember, the last couple of things, priorities, prioritization, allocate the time to focus, have a comms plan, and then match the type of the work to the type of person that you are. Hopefully, that gives you some sense of it. I hope I don't come across as being anti-AI. I use more AI, I'm investing in a lot of AI, but it needs to be located in an incredible amount of context. Thank you very much, and I hope the rest of your day goes really well. Thanks a lot.